Hello folks, it's Chris in Arena Recording Studio. Today I'm going to be chatting about these things. What are they? Yeah, guitar strings, and why I kind of use what I use, and the reasons and the choices behind some of the sets that I kind of go for on all my guitars. So, and I'm talking specifically about electric guitars. I'm going to actually just focus probably on maybe my stratocaster or my Fender Strat, anything along those lines, rather than specific guitars, because certain guitars favour certain strings. But for me, I tend to go for 9s to 42s. I'm a big fan of rotor sounds. Probably the only reason why really is I get an extra first string with these free, which if you do snap one, it's kind of handy to have that spare one in the case floating around. So I tend to go for 9s to 42s on the majority of my electric guitars, if I'm being totally honest. I'm also a big fan of Ernie Ball, Super Slinkies, 9 to 42s. Do I think there is a great deal between these in tonality and quality? Probably not. I can't really say that I can spot any differences on these kind of things a lot of the time. But why I use 9 to 42s is because for me, bending, and I like to play a lot of legato kind of economy pick, faster runs in certain solos when I'm improvising or recording for clients. And I find that 9s to 42s are kind of quite forgiving for me on my fingers and my touch. But I do set all my guitars up with a really low slick action as well. I like something along those lines because, again, I'm not fighting the instrument. I'm continually making sure everything is set nicely with the instrument so that I can play with the lightest touch as possible. The other thing that I do kind of go for occasionally, and I have put these on my Ibanez Gem, which is kind of, dare I say, not a gem anymore because it's been modded and tweaked and resprayed and all kinds of things, new trims put on it, but it was originally an Ibanez Gem. Anyway, I go for the 8s sometimes on those because I like a light touch. Now, tonally, I do find these a little bit more trebly than the 9s to 42s. So this is all source, you know, what kind of music you're going to play, source dependent really, or your technique and your style. So for general day-to-day kind of playing, I use the 9s by the rotor sound. I use 9s to 42s because they kind of fit what I generally require for generic jobs in the studio for clients. Anybody asks me to play something, it's probably going to be 9s to 42s. However, if I'm moving on to humbucker pickups and something like the old SG in the rack there, I do sort of occasionally bang a set of 10s on, okay? And the reason why is they just give me a little bit more on the strings, but obviously it's a lot harder to bend those strings. It's a lot harder to kind of double bend and all these kinds of things. You know, if you're putting a lot of vibrato on there, you might find if you're not used to using 10s, then you get this sore finger syndrome, as I call it. But the downside to that is you're probably going to not get mammoth guitar sessions in, playing sessions, until you've toughened those fingers up a little bit. So I do, like I say, as I said earlier, prefer to stick with the 9s to 42s. 10s, if I'm doing a lot of chugging or a lot of down-tuned sessions as well, you know, for me it works if I'm, say, playing in drop D or something like that, or E flat. I'll put the heavier gauge strings on because it keeps that tension on that neck a little bit more for me. Now, this is a quirky thing that I'm going to say, but my Strat that I actually built 3 or 4 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I can't remember now, which I customed made to suit my style, plays fantastically with 9s to 42s. But over the years of working with Strats, I've discovered something, and probably I don't know whether anybody else has picked up on this, or is it just me being a little bit neurotic, I don't know. But I've discovered that actually my Corona USA 2008 Strat hates 9s. It really, really struggles. I get intermittent fret bores, the neck, and that's caused by the neck varying slightly in different temperatures in different environments. And this is a real subtle change that I'm talking about here, just a few thousandths of an inch on the neck relief. Now, 9s for me on that 2008 Fender Strat, USA Strat, don't hold that guitar steady enough. So the secret to it 10s. Just a little bit more tension on the neck and the guitar stays solid. So again, you have to find, I get this with a lot of the repairs that come into the studio, I find that sometimes guys are saying, this guitar won't work, it won't stay stable, it's floating all over the place, Chris, blah, 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 blah. It can be where the neck is just changing that relief ever so slightly. It just needs 2 or 3 thou variants, and you actually end up with a little bit of fret ruzz and fret rattle even, fret buzz and fret rattle. Oh dear me, you can tell I'm trying to get this out of the way quick before I crack on with something else. So yeah, so I find that 10s on my Strat actually stops that variance, that ever so slight little bit of movement, which can be caused by going from a cool guitar into a warm rehearsal space, or a warm, damp place where you've maybe been in the car and then you actually take it into a house with central heating. All these elements have an impact on your guitar. It's wood, it moves, it breathes. It will always have slight variances, but understanding what keeps your guitar solid is a massive, massive thing as a guitar player, to keeping it in a stable condition and keeping the guitar tuned at concert pitch all the time. I get guys that don't play very often, and when they pull it out of the case, they go, I've not played this for 3 months and I've never tuned it up, and then they wonder why everything's all over the place. So think about what your strings are going to do. Are you going to be using them constantly? You know, keep the guitars tuned up. If you find that your guitar struggles a bit after you've bedded your new strings in, it could just be something as simple as where the neck is actually wandering around ever so slightly. So bang a heavier gauge set of strings on. Don't know what's wrong with these teeth today. A heavier set gauge of strings on and see whether that actually settles things down a bit. You'd be pleasantly surprised that just going up a gauge might do it. Now, I've never been a fan, to be honest, of hybrid sets. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them, just my personal preference. I find that, I think it's just because I've played 9s to 42s probably all my life, you know, maybe 50 years of guitar playing has actually gone into that. So that just feels right for me. But like I say, on the USA Strat, if you're struggling with it, or any guitar, just put a slightly heavier gauge on and see what happens. Let me know in the comments below whether you are having any problems with your guitars, and if it's something that could be a little bit obvious like that, then I may be able to give you a little bit of advice. As I always say, if I've got the answers, I'll pass it on to you and help you as much as I can. If I haven't, then I'll try and find a solution to you as well. But from me, Chris, as always, please like and subscribe to my channel. I am trying to get a little bit more content on here for everybody, and I just want everybody to experience the pleasures of playing a guitar, or writing your own songs, or playing in a band, or busking a few songs at a barbecue. It's all about musical pleasure for me. So as always, like and subscribe, stay safe, stay well, think about those strings, and keep on rocking in the free world.